We have a report from Pakistan where there's a water crisis. With its largely agriculture-based economy, Pakistan has the world's fourth highest rate of water use, a study warning the country may run dry by 2025.
I remember seeing water right across from one end to the other end, probably 40 feet deep. It was not a slow-moving river, it was a flash flood.
Years of mismanagement and pollution have left Pakistan the third most water-stressed country in the world.
Assalamu alaikum everybody, welcome to your brand new edition of the S Stories right here on Sophiya Anjam's official YouTube channel. You can subscribe to my official YouTube channel because this episode airs every Friday 7 p.m. the S Stories, which means keep the spirit alive. And today we're going to talk about the water situation in our country. In Pakistan, a lot of people feel that pani jo hai wo khatam ho raha hai 2025 mein. What is the situation? You need to keep it locked, and what is space for more? Welcome to a brand new edition of the S Stories right here on Sophiya Anjam's official YouTube channel every Friday 7 p.m. So we generally talk about humanitarian causes, we talk about issues that matter, we sometimes talk about travel as well, we talk about entertainment as well. But today, I'm hosting a very special episode because I believe that this cause is very important, not just to me, not just to you, but to the entire country, to Pakistan. I want to start off the show by a quote, and the quote goes something like this. Take a listen very carefully. When the well is dry, only then we realize the true worth of water. So my question here is, why do we have to wait for the well to be dry? Why do we have to understand and realize the worth of water once that it is no more? So today on the show, ladies and gentlemen, I am so happy and honored to have somebody who I love and admire. Assalamu alaikum, how are you doing? Rafay Alam, it's wonderful to have you here.
Assalamu alaikum, Sophiya. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure, pleasure. He, of course, is an environmental lawyer. He is a lecturer as well, a partner at Salim Alam and Company, and it's basically, correct me if I'm mistaken, a law firm specializing in the energy, water, natural resources, and urban planning infrastructure sectors.
It's a fancy way of saying we're environmental lawyers.
There you go, very fancy schmancy, huh?
But we're environmental lawyers.
There you go. Thank you so much, Rafay. Absolute pleasure to have you here. It's a very alarming situation that we have here in our country. Is that a myth? Is it true?
Well, it's no more or lesser alarming than it was last year, or the year before that, or the year before that, or the year before that. So this idea that the crisis is just come is actually not entirely correct. Pakistan has been going through a water crisis for many years now. The water crisis plays out on several different levels and has so many different meanings that it's difficult to sort of say that the water crisis is one discrete thing.
True.
It's many things and many complicated things.
Absolutely. So we tend to oversimplify things.
We tend to oversimplify things. So, I've been reading a lot that Pakistan will go dry by 2025.
Yes.
You're like, really? How? We still have glaciers on those mountains. It's still going to monsoon. So what's the problem here? We're still going to have water. It's not going to... You hear another statistic about how Pakistan's going through a water shortage, and it's brought to your attention by you being told that Pakistan has 1,000 cubic feet of water per person per year.
Yes.
And that this was 5,000 cubic feet of water per person per year in 1947. So we've dropped from 5,000 to 1,000 person, whatever the thing it is. And people are alarmed by this because then you can flash this other scary sort of statistic or factoid past them that the United Nations classifies countries that fall below 1,000 cubic meters per person per year as water stressed.
Absolutely.
So, we're going into that.
Right.
But behind that is a very important, pertinent point that people have to remember, and that is that figure has fallen not because the water somehow has disappeared. It's fallen because the population of Pakistan has shot up and multiplied.
Absolutely.
That's what brings the average down.
True.
There is still water in the rivers.
Right.
There's still going to be rain. There's going to be water in the aquifers. It's just that there are now 200 million of us. And as you said, once the well runs dry, well, it's not really running dry. The issue we're facing is how to handle a scarcity.
True.
How to allocate equitably and fairly a scarce water situation.
Wow.
We've never, in our experience, had to deal with this. We're sitting in Lahore, for example,
Right.
the capital of Punjab,
Right.
the land of 5 rivers. People here never had to worry about water. It's never been part of our
It was
sort of
never a
social,
problem.
economic or
Yes.
governance issue.
True, true.
And now we have a crisis in front of us
Right.
that nothing in our history really prepares us for. There's the crisis, not the absolute shortage of water.
Wow. Rafay, I don't think that anyone has ever even thought about that. Hence, now you guys know why I invited him over on the show. So I wanted to talk about a few statistics and facts and figures also. I was doing
Bring
my
on.
own research and I knew that you would
There are
shun the
lies,
myths.
damned lies, and then there are statistics.
Absolutely, or then endorse it also. So, according to the World Resource Institute, the country is amongst the leading 5 that face extremely high water scarcity and low access to safe drinking water and sanitation. And the UN organization has categorized Pakistan amongst those few unfortunate countries whose water heritage destabilizes and jeopardizes its existence in the next few decades.
What was that middle bit? No, I'm just kidding. But keep that quote because it's a long and complicated question.
Right.
Firstly, we've got to remember that there are other countries in the world that have less water according to this per person per year than
Right.
Pakistan.
Right.
Notably, Australia has less than 500 cubic meters of water per person per year.
Okay.
Yet their farm output, they use that water wisely. They
Okay.
put it in their farms using drip irrigation. They don't waste their water. And they produce very efficient crops. So
Right.
their acre output of crop is greater than Pakistan's when it comes to things like wheat.
Okay.
And they yet have less water than we do.
Wow.
In Israel, for example, is an oft quoted example, although again misleading, but in Israel, water is scarce. And so it's treated insidiously and repeatedly so that it's used several times before it's actually disposed of. They use it very, very wisely. They have very, very scarce amounts of water. You mentioned Singapore when we were talking
Yes,
earlier.
yes.
Singapore has a water shortage of sorts as well, and they recycle water efficiently. And they can use it for their domestic consumption. No person goes parched of water in Singapore,
Right.
even though they have a little bit of water. So again, other countries have less water than Pakistan. That's not the troubling thing. It's what you do with the water.
Absolutely. And not to waste water.
And not to
utilize it
waste water
properly.
and to utilize it. But we said that the other problem with the other aspect of the water challenge in Pakistan
Right.
is that it's not adequate water and it's I think it's providing health issues.
Absolutely. That's later on as well. But
So
right
that's
now,
another aspect of water. You see,
Right.
a lot of water in Pakistan is used for agriculture. It's not used by humans to drink. So the vast amount of water that we have in Pakistan, when it's consumed, is consumed in agriculture.
Right.
There's only a small fraction of it that's actually used for what we call domestic purposes, which is in our cities or in our communities. A lot of the water that's consumed in the cities of Pakistan, and remember, Pakistan is heavily urbanized, so lots of people live in cities.
True.
A lot of the water available in cities is impure.
Okay.
It's impure because of a variety of things. It could be a bad aquifer, sort of an aquifer that's brackish. It could be because of old and leaky pipes that somehow are polluted with wastewater.
and people are too lazy to bother.
It could also be because it's contaminated by the pollution we're putting into the ground, and that's seeping into where we collect the water from.
Right.
So these are causing health issues.
Waterborne
So again,
diseases.
it might not be an absolute shortage of water,
Right.
for instance, in cities, but the water that's available is undrinkable for people.
Right, right.
Right, so that's again the problem is not an absolute shortage of water, it's the quality of water and the amount of water that's available. If you go to Karachi, for example, the problem is both of quality and availability. There are vast areas of Karachi where there's just no water.
Right.
And people have to pay incredible amounts of money to get a
Just
tanker
to
to
get
them.
water. Absolutely. So there you have it. I mean, even if you talk about the urban centers here in Pakistan, I mean, water is not available at a lot of places also, a lot of areas, even in urban cities. So if you talk about the rural areas, it's a completely different ballgame altogether.
A lot of rural areas have different. Every part of Pakistan has a different water, you could say, ecosystem situation. And so it's difficult to classify it one particular way. You know, here in Lahore we have a drinking water problem, but that's because we're south of the Ravi. It so happens if you go to the Rachna Doab, which is just north of the Ravi, they don't have a shortage because the river Chenab provides an aquifer recharge. So, you know, a small number of kilometers can mean a huge difference when it comes to the drinking water that's available. Not the irrigation water, which is something
water
else.
That we drink.
Yeah, the water that we drink and consume. So you're right, different areas, and this could be rural or urban, have different water situations. There are parts of southern Punjab where the groundwater that's available is polluted and there's just no other type of water available. You're too far away from a river or a canal to use that water. And so there's serious questions about how water is made available.
Absolutely. एक हमारा जो एक कौमी फ़र्ज़ बनता है वो ये बनता है कि हम लोगों को ब्लेम करें कि भाई हमारे में तो कोई गलती नहीं है, अगले बंदे में गलती है, हमारा तो कोई कसूर ही नहीं है ना, हम तो बिल्कुल ही बेकसूर हैं। तो मैं एक स्टेटमेंट बोलती हूँ राफ़े, आप इसको या तो एंडोर्स करेंगे या आप उसको कहेंगे कि ये मिथ है। ओके, सो इंडिया has violated the Indus Water Treaty many times by building dams on the western rivers. So
this is actually untrue. It's a factually untrue. I'm a lawyer, and let me explain why that's untrue. Pakistan and India have an international agreement called the Indus Waters Treaty, where both these countries have agreed on how to allocate the waters of the Indus Basin amongst themselves. India is under an obligation to let flow certain rivers into Pakistan and not to obstruct the flow, but it is allowed to build limited types of run-of-the-river hydropower projects. It's allowed to use that water for domestic purposes, and it's allowed to divert it for a few other purposes. It's explicit in the treaty. So it's not as if they can't build dams on those rivers, they can, but under certain conditions.
So what's the hue and cry about? Why are people blaming
Well, every time India constructs or plans to construct a dam, there is a difference between India and Pakistan as to whether or not India is complying with the terms of the treaty, in that it's building the dam in accordance with the treaty. And every time an issue arises, because this is an agreement between the two countries, both countries have referred this matter to a form of arbitration or neutral decision. And in two cases, both parties having differences on constructions of dams went to a form of dispute resolution, got a solution or got an answer from court or from a neutral expert, and accepted the outcome of that decision.
And this was how many years ago?
In 2008 and 2013 with the Baghliar neutral expert decision, and in 2013 it was the Kishinganga Dam neutral expert. But so what you have to understand is whenever there's a difference that's arisen, the treaty has worked and provided the two countries with a solution that they have agreed upon. So you can't say one country is violating the treaty. Right? There is a treaty that tells these two countries how to negotiate the water between them. Whenever there's been a difference, both countries have managed to take their difference to some sort of adjudicator and have agreed on the outcome. They are political. Both times Pakistan's gone.
It's political,
it's political, and I'll tell you why it's political. Because both in the Kishinganga and in the Baghliar decision, both countries said that they'd won. Their politicians came and said, "Hum jit gaye na." But it's much more. That's a lot of it is that. A lot of it is that. You know, 2 years ago, Prime Minister Narendra Modi stood on the banks of the River Ravi and announced to a bunch of supporters, there was an election going on that year, announced to a bunch of supporters that not a drop of the River Ravi would be allowed to flow to Pakistan. And it was put in the press here.
I remember that.
Well, the thing is that all of the water of the River Ravi is specifically and entirely allocated to the Indians under the Indus Water Treaty.
There we go.
And they have already constructed the Theen Dam upstream of the border, which completely diverts the flow of the River Ravi. So standing on the banks of the River Ravi and stating that the sun rises on the east is not a huge science, it's politics.
There you go. So, you know, don't believe everything that you see on the social media unless and until it has factual pointers or a thought process behind it, to say the least. I think you kind of, he's a little skeptical about.
I've seen a lot of stuff that's been on the WhatsApp and the social media recently. It's like everyone's woken up and become a hydrological expert or a dam expert.
That is so true.
You know, I don't claim to be. I'm just a lawyer who's tried to understand water lawyers. But this knee-jerk reaction that a dam will solve a problem or an infrastructure will solve a problem.
Which was my next question.
Well, I don't know much about dams, really. I'm not an expert that way. I do have some knowledge because I've done cases on road infrastructure in Lahore, underpasses, bridges, this sort of stuff. To me, a dam is like an underpass. It will solve a problem for a bit, for a bunch of people.
So it's a temporary solution.
It's
not a permanent.
It's not a holistic. It's part of a bundle of solutions that Pakistan could look at in order to tackle this water crisis.
So holistically speaking, building dams is not really the solution.
What do you want to do with that dam? You know, what's that dam going to do? Well, dams usually store water, and that's very important for Pakistan, so that we have a reserve of water in the lean period.
Right.
Pakistan only gets its water from the melt of glaciers, and that happens in the summer.
Okay.
And then it gets its water from the rain that comes during the monsoon.
True.
And that's only a few months as well. So what Pakistan needs is reservoirs that can stop this water as it flows down the Indus Basin and into the Arabian Sea.
Okay, so here's a question: climate change, right? Now we see that, you know, sometimes winter is harsh, sometimes summer is harsh, and then you have certain unpredictable weather conditions also.
Yeah.
So what if we don't have the same kind of rain that we've been having for a long time? And that is also one of the reasons why we have problems.
Well, I was listening to a lecture by the Director General of the Pakistan Met Department a few months ago.
Okay.
And he was explaining how the monsoons come into North Punjab. They've usually had a normal trajectory. They come in pretty much over Lahore and they head towards the mountains. In the Indian side, it's the Kashmir. They sort of bump into the Kashmir and the Himalayas and the Karakoram, and that's pretty much where they stop.
Right.
But over the last 15 years, the monsoon has been drifting south.
Okay.
It's hitting more of the central parts of Punjab than the northern parts of Punjab.
Okay.
The thing is that the two big dams that we have, the Tarbela and the Mangla, that collect the water of the monsoons are north. So climate change means the rain is going to come down and our reservoirs will not be catching it.
Right.
So climate change will have this impact. For instance, just with monsoons, climate change will also have an impact on how glaciers melt, the speed with which they melt, and the amount of water that they have consequently. And that's going to, it's something that we have to think about when we decide to put an incredible amount of money into a single type of solution, like a dam. You put something like a dam up with all of this silt flowing from the glacial melt, that dam will actually silt up much sooner than it should.
Okay.
So why spend so much money doing that? Are there alternatives to storing water?
Right.
Yes, they are. There are dozens of alternatives to storing water. There are alternatives to making electricity with water as well. You don't need to have a large storage dam to make electricity. You can have run-of-the-river dams that don't actually hold water. Chappu chal raha hota hai aur bijli ban rahi hoti hai.
Bilkul sahi hai. Acha, so having said all of that, why are people so scared in Pakistan? A, because of the media. B, because of the government is not doing anything about it as far as the campaigning is concerned. So why are people either kept out of the dark or they need to be more aware what can be done? And on the social media, Rafay, there is campaign going on. आप भी पैसे दें, मैं भी पैसे देती हूँ. चलिए जी सारे मिलके बैठ के ना डैम बना लेते हैं.
That's not the way to look at the problem.
Right.
You know, water is not a resource; it's a treasure. It's something. Water is how we live. It's in our histories. If you look just over 100 years to the Punjab, all the settlements of the Punjab used to be along riverbanks. Our poetry is set on riverbanks. Our literature is set here. The Mahabharata was written on the banks here. This is part of our culture. Water is not just a hydrological solution. It's part of who we are, and we can't just keep on looking at water solutions as one particular type of solution. You know, people talk about how we can reduce the amount of water we consume, and a lot of people suggest, for instance, turn the tap off when you brush your teeth. Well, that's one way of doing it. You might save a couple of glasses of water. But think of this. This cotton trouser, a pair of jeans that I'm wearing, must have taken about 8,000 liters of water to produce, because cotton is a water-intensive crop.
Yes.
Right? That's 8,000 liters. I could fill this entire room with 8,000 liters of water for a pair of jeans. Now, the question is, do I need a pair of jeans every year? Do I need a lawn suit? Or do I need this type of... So water conservation is also about how we live and the practices that we have.
I think it's how you think. The way that you think is
it's
very
not
important.
just, I will put some money together and a dam up north will solve our problems. The thing is that with our love of meat, we also have to understand that in order to grow a cow to the scale it should be sacrificed at, it basically results in a kilo of beef requiring as much as 15,000 liters of water to produce.
True.
You know? So do we have to have meat with every meal?
Yeah.
Do we have to be meat eaters? These are questions that we should be asking ourselves as well.
So
maybe we just have meat on the 2 special occasions of the year, Eid. Because back in the desert, 1,000 years ago, people didn't have refrigerators. Meat was something that was actually very, very sacred. It was done for very, very special occasions. And the sort of corporate agriculture we've seen in the 20th century actually globally produces as much methane emissions, and I think we believe greenhouse gas emissions, that it rivals the automobile emissions of the world.
Right.
Because cows produce a lot of methane.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so we have cows all over the world being fed poison to produce meat that we consume without thinking about it. We could change the water situation of the world by just reducing our water footprint by the clothes we wear and the food we eat.
Exactly. So I think we've been asking the wrong kind of questions and answering the wrong kind of questions along the way. I think the questions we should be asking should be the questions that we right now are talking about as well. Okay, well, this is wonderful. That's why, you know, I was really looking forward to this show also, because I really wanted him to come over and talk about this. So I talked about Singapore earlier, and I just want to talk a little bit about, you know, water pricing in Pakistan as well. When it comes to Singapore, they follow the strategy of 4 taps, and Japan has invested heavily in water saving technology. So let's talk a little bit about these countries and our own country for that matter.
We price water in Pakistan in a couple of places. We price it in agriculture.
Right.
It's called an abiana. So you pay for acre foot of water.
Okay.
So how much water it takes to cover an acre of land with a foot of water. And you'd be surprised that an acre foot of water in Punjab is roughly about 80 or 90 rupees.
Okay.
Which is nothing.
Yeah.
Right? There's coffee that's more expensive, you know.
Coffee is always more expensive.
But for a whole acre foot of water,
right?
It's ludicrously low. We also consider water pricing for domestic use, so the amount of water that you have when you use your taps and so on. So there are 2 different types of water pricing. The problem with the domestic water pricing is that most of the taps in Lahore or in any of our urban areas are not metered.
Okay.
मीटर नहीं लगा, so how can you tell how much water has been consumed? पता नहीं चल सकता,
measure ही नहीं कर सकते,
measure नहीं कर सकते. तो लाहौर में इस वक्त जो पानी को पानी का rate है is not according to the amount of water you have, it's on the basis of the rent that you pay for your property. And it caps out at a couple of thousand rupees bus. It's very, very low. And what that means is that rich people don't have to pay more than 2,000, 3,000 rupees, और वो अपनी गाड़ियों को साफ पानी से धो सकते हैं, वो बड़े बड़े बाग रख सकते हैं. My friend Danish Mustafa has done some research in Lahore and in Punjab, and he finds that actually after domestic consumption, the second largest use of water is in horticulture. People consume a huge amount of drinking water to plant foreign and invasive plants to beautify their homes on a Western model. It's a very interesting conversation. But anyway, so there are 2 types of pricing. You want to price the water in Lahore, in our cities, you have to buy a whole bunch of meters and put them out. And then you have to answer people's political concerns because people aren't used to paying for water.
I don't think people are used to paying for anything at all.
बिजली के लिए पैसे देते
देने पड़ते हैं ना,
हाँ. So नहीं, एक ज़माने में Vasa used to, when Lahore was much smaller through the 50s and 60s, the Water and Sanitation Agency had a great reputation. Even in the 70s and 80s had a great reputation because it provided excellent service. We've just allowed that fantastic service to go into neglect because it's coincided with a period where we believe that water out of bottles is safer than the water that comes out of our taps. I really
want to talk about this. Okay, now one of the major reasons why I really wanted to have Rafay over, ladies and gentlemen, is because I wanted to talk about bottled water and the consumption. Now before that, we were talking about a lot of things like आप meter की भी बात कर रहे थे, एक और भी चीजें बात कर रहे थे, the right kind of questions to be asked. I feel that here in our society, unfortunately, 2 problems हैं. एक तो सबसे major problem ये है blame game. आपकी गलती है, मेरी नहीं, मैं तो बहुत innocent हूँ, मेरा तो कोई कसूर ही नहीं है. And I think the second one is a lack of research. That we don't work hard enough, we don't research, and we don't have the patience.
We're a country of experts.
Yeah?
And
everyone has an opinion?
Everyone is an expert in Pakistan.
There you go. So I think we really need to think about that. Now, coming to my favorite question of all, Rafay.
Bottled water.
Bottled water, because this is not my TV show, my radio show, so we can go ahead and talk about this. Hence, if you've noticed, I don't have bottles here.
Thank you.
So yes. बॉटल वाटर, लोग कहते हैं कि भाई ठीक है हम तो मिनरल वाटर पियेंगे क्योंकि हमारे लिए बहुत सेफ है, तो क्या वाकई हमारे लिए सेफ है? What are we drinking?
I don't know what you're drinking because it differs from company to company. And this Supreme Court case that's taking place or took place last year had a local commission report that went out the city of Lahore at least and found that, I mean, you've got your 2 or 3 big brands, but there are dozens of brands of water in Lahore.
True.
And most of them were nalke ka pani.
All the bakeries are opening up their own brands also.
Basically, so you can't. It's basically water put in a plastic bottle.
No, but don't they have like a check and balance kind of a situation that people do some testing and they pass the test?
चलो 3, 4, 5 करते होंगे. ठीक है जी. बाकी तो नहीं करते.
Okay.
This is a fact.
So what we're drinking, you're saying, is Tap
and even
water.
with the sort of the stuff with the little, you know, there'll be a little notice on it telling you that isme falana kitna hai,
Right.
calcium kitna hai.
Right.
If you look at the range of values that's given,
Right. Yeah.
right, it's like pH will be between 3 and 7.
Right.
It's like, that's the whole more or less range of pH. ये कहने की कोई चीज़ है ही नहीं. So again, you don't know what you're drinking.
Right, right.
But it's just water from somewhere put into a plastic bottle.
Right.
And I emphasize the plastic bottle because that is polluting.
Absolutely.
That is non-sustainable. That is non-biodegradable.
Agreed.
That
Agreed.
is a crime. I'm increasingly believing that consuming bottled water is a crime for that plastic that you're using.
Absolutely.
Single-use plastic like that. It's
Yes.
terrible. Absolutely terrible.
We really need to minimize. I mean, I would want to use the word ban, but I think it's a bit much right now because we really
But
need
I want
to
to come back
minimize
to this. Minimize,
Yeah.
yes. And I'll tell you why. Because
the use of plastic.
not just the use of plastic, but we happily pay 15 or 20 rupees for a little bottle of indestructible plastic with a bit of unknown water in it.
Right.
Happily we pay for it, okay?
Right.
So I was invited to this factory that pumps water and sells it to us
Okay.
in Sheikhupura. It's a
Okay.
very big factory,
All right.
fantastic factory. And
Recently?
about 2 years ago.
Okay.
You know, very well laid out, very efficient.
Okay.
And they told me that that year they were going to extract 220 million liters of water
Okay.
from the Rachna aquifer. That's between the Ravi and the Chenab.
Right.
Rachna. It comes from Ravi and Chenab put together as
Rachna.
Rachna.
Okay.
All the Dawabs
Okay.
have names that match the. Anyway, it's a long
Actually a
story.
beautiful name.
It's a beautiful
Yeah.
Persian name. It's part of our
Beautiful
culture.
name. True.
220 million liters of water they're going to suck out of the ground, put it through a reverse osmosis process that has about 15% wastage.
Okay.
That means dirty effluent will be discharged, so 20% of 220 million जो भी बनता है, huge amount will be discharged, और बाकी पानी वो प्लास्टिक की बोतलों में डाल के हमें बेचेंगे. That company made over 90 billion rupees after tax in that year, in 2015. And granted they sell things like milk and chocolate, वो आप निकाल लें.
I'm
मैंने
not
उनसे
surprised.
सवाल पूछा,
हाँ.
आप इस पानी के लिए सरकार को कितना पैसा देते
ठीक है.
हैं? और उन्होंने कहा zero. The only money that that company consumes in the extraction of water is the tube well that they run. Because our groundwater laws are so weak that this company launched its international brand in Pakistan
Right.
first. There was Nestle Pure Life was launched in Pakistan
Okay.
as an experiment to see whether it would work. Can I get political
Of
here?
course, go ahead,
Whether
go
it would
ahead.
work to fool people into
Right.
buying bottled water over
Right.
forcing their governments to provide clean drinking water.
Right, right.
If you think of the amount of money Nestle makes selling 220 million liters of water, जो
Right.
हम हंसी मजाक से हम उनको पैसे देते हैं, हम सेल्स टैक्स भी देते हैं.
और हमें तो
ठीक है?
लगता है वो सबसे सेफ
वो
ब्रांड है.
मुफ्त से वो पानी निकाल रहे हैं from the aquifer. That water belongs to the people of Pakistan,
Right.
and they're taking it out for free and they're selling it to us.
Right.
Now, if you think of the amount of money, the billions of rupees that they make,
हाँ.
if the government of Sheikhupura were to tax them 10%,
Right.
all the schools in Sheikhupura would never have anything to worry about. And if it's not just Nestle, it's the Pepsi people as well with their Dasani brand. You know why Dasani's jumped in? Because of the Supreme Court intervention, most of the third-rate bottle companies have gone out of business. So Dasani saw a gap in the market and it jumped
Wasn't
right in.
that Coke?
Yeah, it's Coke basically. The Coke people came and jumped on
Yeah.
it. Because Pepsi ka tha thoda sa,
हाँ.
Nestle ka tha thoda sa.
हाँ.
I mean, the point is, it's
Yeah.
an unregulated market where
Right.
people are literally taking a natural resource that belongs to the people of Pakistan
Right.
and then selling it to the elite, because the elite will rather pay billions of rupees for plastic, indestructible plastic, than billions of rupees in tax that will actually give them clean drinking water for free. It is, you know, it's beyond comprehension that they get away with this.
Well, I'll tell you something. I mean, I have absolutely no expectations from all these different multinational companies because I do believe that, you know, they're only interested in their business and only interested in extracting money from the poor and from the rich as well at the same time.
And I must go on record by
Yeah.
to say that Nestle does have some of the best HR practices in Pakistan.
Okay.
As a company, it behaves fantastically.
Right.
It has a fantastic CSR program. It's doing stuff on water.
But they just feed us something that can kill us.
They are Nestle at the end of the day, and they do. Nestle leaves good in Pakistan. we can't just discount them entirely as being these sort of global conglomerates, which they are. But there is a lot of good that these conglomerates also do in Pakistan. You know, it's not just Nestle, it's the other multinationals. They do bring a certain amount of, they have improved the business practices of Pakistan and have elevated things along the way. And it's been done by Pakistanis in governance positions as well. So really, individually, I don't want to be out there saying
no, I get what you're saying. Of course, I mean.
But the point is that ये पैसे, I mean, जितने पैसे हम खर्च रहे हैं, I mean, we shouldn't be paying for this water because it's ours.
Because I'm sorry, I can't get beyond this. I mean, I can't get past it because this is something which is, I feel it's an atrocious practice that's happening. And it shouldn't happen. I mean, people don't even know. And even if they know, I mean, what are they doing about it? The government is not even bothered about it. What are we showing in the media?
The government is it's very difficult for the government because, again, when you talk about water pricing, the very easy thing you'll hear in response is that, oh my God, you're going to privatize water.
Right.
What about people's rights to water? Well, and that's what the next sort of minefield of debate that you have to then navigate when you talk about bottled water is then, and it's linked to water pricing.
Right.
Okay, how do you then price water?
Right.
Which, you know, again, there's a scarcity of sorts, and there's also a quality issue of sorts.
Right.
And so how do you allocate this scarcity amongst people in an equitable fashion?
Right, right.
That's a difficult question to price. Okay. Now, a lot of people in Pakistan will say that Islam mein hadith hai ki pani muft hona chahiye, and this is correct. But back in Arabia, it was revolutionary for the Prophet Muhammad to suggest that the water of a well, if you owned a well in Arabia, you owned everything because water was life. To tell the people who owned wells that ye pani jo hai saron ko denge, that was a revolutionary thought,
right.
And it still holds here. But that shouldn't mean that government has to finance all of things. There are certain what we call operation and maintenance costs that, again, according to hadith, you can charge a certain amount of money for the provision of water. So it's a minefield of debate that you have to get through.
Right.
Anyway, we're not the only country that's had to deal with this.
No,
Mexico's had to deal with all sorts of countries, and we can learn from their example.
True.
So, like in Bogota, in Colombia, where there's a water shortage, you get 50 liters of water for free.
Right.
So that's your ghusl and your ghar ka and your khane ka, ek din ka, ek khandan ke liye, 4-5 logon ke liye pura.
Okay, Rafay, another thing that I want to talk about, although I do believe that, you know, we're having a very interesting conversation, it can go on and as well, but I think one thing that I've learned is that we have been asking the wrong questions, and I think we really need to ask the right kind of questions and then answer those kind of questions as well, which is very important. Another thing that I want to talk about is that agriculture sector provides 47% employment to a total population of Pakistan.
Yeah,
so
the agriculture sector historically has been the lifeblood of Pakistani society.
Yes.
I don't know whether it's 47, 45% because the numbers are there.
Right.
But back to agriculture, I'd mentioned earlier that agriculture is one of the main consumers of water.
Right.
So of the glacial melt and groundwater and monsoon water that we have, over 90% of it goes to agriculture. Over 90%. So the vast amount of it goes there. And you can see that, you know, every other Pakistani works on water. And then we hear that, you know, rural areas are also beset with poverty. It's where there's lack of development.
Yes.
And there are plenty of fantastic middle-class families that have emerged from corporate agriculture in the last 40 years. And I don't mean to denigrate their efforts. But what it appears to me is that we're taking 90% of our water and we're putting it, half of our population, to work consuming it or somehow using it,
right.
And most of those people live under poverty.
Okay.
So we're taking most of our water to put most of our people to work under poverty.
Right.
Surely there's a way to use this water of the Indus Basin in a way that we can break out of this cycle. What do I mean by that? Just two random examples, well, not random, but rather extreme examples. That in California, in Nevada, where there's no water, the hotels that you see in San Francisco, the favaras, the fountains, it's the same amount of water. It's actually the most profitable use of a limited amount of water.
Right.
Because all that hotel revenue, basically all those people come to the hotels and stuff, so a certain amount, or given amount of water, couple thousand liters that they reuse and reuse, makes them so profitable. So just a little bit of water can make a lot of profit. If you use water differently in agriculture, because right now we use it to grow wheat and rice and sugar.
Yes.
Rice and sugar are extremely water intensive, and we export a lot of our rice. You know, Do we have to have wheat? Do we have to have this much rice? Would it be better if we diverted the rice crop to something else and imported cheaper rice? Do we have to eat basmati? You know, could we get cheaper Korean rice? These are all questions that emerge.
TV पर आता है ना बासमती राइस की TV की advertisements देखिए आप रेडियो पर तो
So
हमें लेना पड़ता है
if
ना.
you take, you know, 1 million acre foot of water and use it to the production of microchips, that will employ tens of thousands of people and give them millions of dollars.
Right.
But if you take an acre of water and use it to make alfalfa or wheat, you're going to take a family of 50 and give them subsistence wages.
True.
So we can rethink how we use this fantastic natural resource that we have benefited from ever since the canals were brought to North India in the 12th century.
Right.
We've got to move on. There are other better ways of using this water than taking most of it to put most Pakistanis to work under poverty.
Right.
I find that equation quite jarring.
Absolutely.
And that's where our policymakers need to be innovative.
Right.
You know, we're stuck, Sophia, we're stuck in this cycle that hydrology and dams will fix us.
Yes.
And it is, by the way, linked to the fact that it's 100% proven clear statistically, and I've got a study to back this up, that there is absolutely no voice for women when it comes to policy setting in the water sector, or women who are represented in the water sector.
Right.
None whatsoever. It's a male-dominated field, mostly by hydrologists, and then by a bunch of diplomats who talk about the Indus Water Treaty, and then by a bunch of Fauji's who talk about the defense of Pakistan. This is not the right constituency to be highlighting what the water issues
I
of
second
Pakistan
that.
are.
Absolutely.
You know, half the population of Pakistan is voiceless when it comes to water.
Right, right.
Water is not about dams. Water is about how children can wash their hands and not get diarrhea, which is one of the leading causes of child death. That's water for me as well. We need to talk about that water, and that water involves women. So the debate has to be broadened and broken away from this cabal of old men, hydrologists mostly, and broadened to include the youth, especially women, and all sectors of society. There are groups that operate outside this small cabal of intellectuals who should be accessed. The Hisar Foundation has done some fantastic work. Lead Pakistan does fantastic work.
Right.
The Sustainable Development Policy Institute in Pakistan does fantastic work.
Right.
The HEC has a Center for Excellence in the Study of Water out in Mehran University. They do fantastic work. They're experts that we have.
They should all be brought in.
They're all in, they're talking about it. But this debate is so hegemonic कि मैं, you know, choha पहन के बाहर भीख मांगेंगे, that the others are being crowded out.
Right.
Not just that, but water in its other forms is also being crowded out. We don't appreciate water in literature anymore. We all think about it in terms of hydrology. So there's a lot to be gotten out of water just by broadening our debate on it.
Wonderful. I think that is such a wonderful perspective of looking at it. And again, coming down to the fact that, you know, we've been talking about this for a while, that Pakistan mein ab pani jo hai wo bilkul khatam hone wala hai. So that is not the case anymore. It's the
I mean, वो खत्म हो सकता है हमारे लिए अगर हम अपनी आदतें ठीक ना करें.
आदतें ठीक करें. और इन्होंने बहुत अच्छा पॉइंट एक जो है वो रेस किया था कि पाकिस्तान सिर्फ एक अकलौता मुल्क नहीं पूरी दुनिया में जहाँ पे पानी खत्म हो सकता है. We should just know how to utilize it properly and not to waste water. Which reminds us that, you know, we have to come to solutions now when it comes to the media representation of the problem that we face, and also when it comes to the civil society, to laws as well, and what can we do as an individual to make a difference. So instead of sharing the fact that ठीक है आप भी पैसे दे मैं भी पैसे दूँ और डैम बनाए, what can we do?
Well,
और अगर bottled water नहीं पीना तो क्या पिएं हम?
हाँ, बिल्कुल सही. Now those are difficult questions because ये हमारी आदतें are wedded into things. We can't just change the way we get electricity because it's tied into the grid. We can't just change, you know, कि कल मैं नलके का पानी लाहौर का पीना शुरू कर दूँ, I'll get some sort of disease in a few weeks. I mean, this is true. But we have to work towards change. We have to work towards making people who make these decisions understand better what's at stake.
True.
Right? Because the folks who appear to be making decisions, or at least the constituency that's developing is a one-sided constituency, एक ही आवाज़ आ रही है. You know, बाकी आवाज़ें भी सुने. So people should know that they need to study about water more. Water, like I said, Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr. said, it's not a resource, it's not something that's science. It's a treasure, it's something to be cherished. It really is a fantastic study of things. So that's where we start from. But if you want day-to-day practices, really you'd be surprised how plastic consumes water in its production. Get rid of your use of plastic. That's one way you can improve the water. Stop eating as much meat as you do. Have meat once or twice a week. you know, repair your clothes.
Yes.
Think about that. And these three things will have a magnified effect on your water footprint.
If you do it collectively, absolutely.
And if you did it collectively, then you can move into your house and stuff. You can retool some of your fixtures and fittings. The Japanese have a fantastic system where their sink is above their flush.
Yes.
You know, so the grey water that they produce in their bathrooms is immediately recycled. We should have that in the design of our homes. You know, all these new building societies that we see are still using the plumbing technology of the early 20th century.
Right.
वहाँ से वो आगे नहीं बढ़े. So we have to change those things. We can change. We can change the way we wash our cars. The rich, especially English-speaking types, shouldn't have large gardens. They consume a lot of water. These exotic trees that we get, they consume a lot of water. Reconsider what we think is beautiful in this climate. You know, you might want to try out some indigenous trees and just some shade.
Absolutely.
So these are also things we can think about doing. So conserving water is really altering your way of life and reconnecting to nature in many ways as well.
Wonderful. But last but not the least, certainly, I would also suggest that he should start his own YouTube channel as well, so he can actually bring about a change in the society and talk about solid content for sure. Everybody who agrees, put your hands up. There you go. I definitely agree. Thank you so much, Rafay. It was such a pleasure to have you over.
Thank you very much for having me.
Pleasure.
For listening.
Thank you so much. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. And my name is Sophie. Of course, you were watching this special episode of the S Stories right here on Sophiya Anjam's official YouTube channel. And जाते जाते हम आपको ये बताएंगे कि भाई देखिए बात ये होती है कि जब हम change की बात करते हैं तो change एक word हमें बहुत appeal करता है because you know we want others to change, we want the world to change, but the only person who can actually truly change is you. That's me. That's you. That's us together collectively. And as a nation, I'm sure that we can do that. They say that the biggest problem that a society faces is the fact that someone else will solve the problem. So let's shun that myth. Let's shun this problem and work towards a better Pakistan. Pakistan, Zindabad. Thank you for watching.